This is the only video you need to jump higher. This is the video where I'm going to lay out everything you need to know. No fluff, no gimmicks. I'm breaking down the entire system. How to structure your training, how to periodize your training, what qualities actually matter, how to train in season, things outside of training you need to do, and all that stuff. Most people would charge for the information I'm about to share, but I'm not here to gatekeep. I gotta see all you guys getting bouncy, so let's get into it. Jumping is a skill like anything else. And like any other skill, you gotta practice it a lot. So you gotta practice jumping as much as you can while you're healthy. This doesn't mean just jumping in your games or in practices or when you're playing your sport, but intentionally implementing max jumping in your routine. During your sport, whether it's basketball or volleyball, you're likely not performing absolute maximum effort jumps. It's probably closer to 90 or 95% of your max effort because you gotta worry about spiking the ball and timing your approach in volleyball, or timing yourself on a block or a rebound in basketball. On a fast break dunk, sure, you might be getting a max effort jump, but how many times are you getting a fast break in a game? Probably a couple times. This is why having designated jump sessions where you're trying to touch as high as you can is so effective. Not just touching the rim, not just dunking, but actually reaching for something that's out of your reach. This is why having something like a vert trainer or a vert tech is so crucial, because you can set it up as high as you can and actually force intent into your jumps. Your body needs to learn the rhythm, timing, coordination, and sequencing it takes to produce a high effort jump efficiently. You can have elite strength, but it doesn't mean you'll automatically jump high. You need the coordination, you need muscle memory, so that's why you gotta practice jumping just like any other skill. How many times should you jump? It depends on you. Usually younger guys are able to perform more jumps than older guys. So for guys that are younger, maybe in your teens, you can jump upwards to every day if you can. If you are healthy, maybe closer to 2 to 4 sessions is a lot more maintainable. Other guys like me are only able to jump 1 time per week. So it all depends on you. If you're healthy, feel free to jump a little bit more. If you're focusing on training or you're in season or you're a lot older, 1 to 2 sessions is good enough. Build muscle and strength in an organized fashion. You can't be explosive without something to actually explode with. To increase the potential of your vertical, you need to get stronger. To increase the potential of your strength, you need to build more muscle. As a younger or inexperienced lifter, it's not that your technique sucks. It's most likely that you just don't have enough muscle to produce enough force. If your training age is low and you're weak, getting both your strength and your muscle mass up will do you wonders. Force equals mass times acceleration. You can't apply a lot of force if 1, you can't lift a lot of mass, and 2, you can't lift a certain amount of mass fast. In this case, the mass being your body weight. And even if you're naturally bouncy or springy, there's a ceiling you'll never reach until you build a solid strength base. Training for hypertrophy is a great way to build muscle mass. It's through high volume training. If you're starting out 3 to 4 sets by about 8 to 12 reps is good enough. Target all the muscles in your lower body, your calves, your quads, your hamstrings, your glutes, and focus on that for a decent amount of time, maybe a couple months. Then once you've built enough muscle by doing that, you can train strength with higher intensities, higher weights, with lower volume. Training for strength can be 2 to 5 sets for 1 to 6 reps. If you don't know what exercises to target when training for hypertrophy or strength, just think about training your lower body. Include a squat pattern, a hip hinge pattern, and a calf raise pattern to start out. Then you can get into the more advanced movements later on. Increase explosiveness. This includes training things like power, rate of force development, and impulse. Rate of force development, or RFD, is how quickly you can generate force. When you jump, you only have a tiny window, around 200 milliseconds, to produce force onto the ground. The faster you can go from 0 to max force in that time span while you're on the ground, the higher RFD will be, which means the higher you'll jump. High RFD is what actually makes you pop off the ground. Think of it like trying to step on a gas pedal really fast. It doesn't matter how big your engine is or how fast your car is. There's gonna be a delay when your leg is going from rest to trying to step on the pedal. Power is force times velocity. Not the same as RFD, but very similar. This considers how much force you're producing and how fast the movement is happening over the course of the entire movement. So it's more of a full picture thing. For example, you could generate a lot of power from a heavy back squat. If it's heavy, the velocity is likely slower. There's 2 metrics to power, force and velocity. So if force is high and velocity is slow, power can still be pretty high. But in a heavy back squat, RFD is likely gonna be lower. But for jumping, where the movement happens really fast, high RFD is usually more important than max power output alone. Now, impulse is a little different. Impulse is the change of momentum of an object when it's acted upon by a force within a given time. In physics terms, impulse equals force times time. In the context of jumping, it describes how much force you're able to apply to the ground and how long you're able to apply that force while you're on the ground. All of these things rely on high force, which means to improve these qualities, you gotta lift heavy weights and train strength, do faster and more reactive type training with lighter weight, max intent plyos, and maximum jumping. Again, in an organized fashion. So the things you're doing right now in when you're training are likely targeting all of these things I'm talking about. However, it's not just about putting random things in your routine. You got to make sure it makes sense. And I'll get into how to do that in just a second. The biggest mistake I see athletes make is spamming the hell out of heavy lifting and heavy plyos. And they do that just because they know strength and power is important in jumping. But if you're just spamming the hell out of these without any purpose, any intention, then you're going to burn yourself out pretty quickly. Or you're going to cause an injury, or both. And that's where this next thing comes into play: progressive overload. This is something every single athlete needs to understand. If you want to keep jumping higher, building muscle, getting stronger, you can't just do the same workouts with the same exercises with the same intensity and volume every single week. You're not going to see results if you do that. Your body adapts to whatever you give it. That means if the training stimulus stays the same, you're going to plateau. Progressive overload is the idea of progressively increasing demands onto your body so that it can continuously adapt. Whether that's getting stronger, faster, or more explosive, it works for every single lifter, every single athlete. And there are a few common ways to progressively overload. Number one, you can add more weight each time. This is like going from a 200-pound squat today to a 210-pound squat next week with the same volume. Number two, you can increase the volume but maintain the weight. So doing a 200-pound squat for 3 sets by 10 reps today to next week where you're doing the same 200-pound squat for 3 sets by 12 reps. So you're doing an extra 6 reps of volume in this next week. You can increase the speed or the intent of your reps. For example, this is going from a normal tempo squat to a fast concentric squat next week. So you can also shorten the rest times, put more demands on your body, and you can also increase the depth or the range of motion of your lift. This especially works if you have knee pain, going from a quarter squat to a half squat to a full squat. The idea is to make training gradually more intense over time. In jump training, this could also look like progressing from basic plyos to more advanced plyos, increasing the intent of your jumps, implementing more intense variations of lifting, etc. And this is all while staying intentional and tracking your progress. The key is this: training needs to be measurable and it needs to challenge you enough to force an adaptation. This is where the minimum dose effect comes into play. You want to stress out your body just enough, but not overdo it to the point of chronic fatigue. Think of it like leveling up in a game. Progressive overload isn't just like going from level 1 to level 10. You got to go through all the previous levels in order to adapt accordingly. You got to adapt to level 1, then to level 2, then to level 3, so on and so forth, until you're strong enough to be able to handle level 10. Level 10 could look like a 315 back squat. Right now, level 1 is like a 135 back squat. Build your way up to 315 accordingly. If you're not progressive overloading, you're just maintaining. And maintenance doesn't get you jumping higher. But don't just throw all of these things I just mentioned into your training randomly. You should periodize your training. You've probably heard this a lot. What is periodization? How the fuck do I periodize my training? What does periodization actually mean? Periodization is the planned manipulation of training variables in order to achieve a desired outcome effectively. I'd rather not go over every method of periodization, but a very common one for jump training programs is block periodization. In this method, you're focusing on one singular quality in a given training cycle. Training cycle could last about 3 to 6 weeks. A training cycle is also called the block. Usually how people do it is going from a hypertrophy block to a strength block to a power block, followed by a taper. And this would be around 4 months. A typical progression could look like this: a few weeks of hypertrophy, high volume training to build mass, followed by a strength block where volume is lower, but weight and intensity is higher, then a power block focusing on faster movements to convert your strength into explosiveness. And finally, once you built enough training fatigue, you're not performing as well, this is when you would implement a taper, aka a peaking phase, where you're dropping fatigue by doing slightly less intensity and less volume in order for fatigue levels to go back to normal so that you can actualize all the training you've done to this point. When fatigue drops, expect your vertical to skyrocket. This is the specific order most programs go through: hypertrophy, strength, power, taper. This is because each cycle builds off of the previous cycle. Jumping requires high power requires high strength requires a lot of muscle. What do you do afterwards? What do you do after the 4 months are done? Some people just rinse and repeat the 4 months. They do hypertrophy, strength, power, taper. Once they've recovered enough, they do the same thing over and over again. This could be good in the beginning, but eventually over time, just like I said earlier, if you keep doing the same things, you're gonna plateau. And this is no different from doing this 4-month training consistently. And this is exactly why I don't personally use block periodization, because when you're working on one singular quality in a given mesocycle, you're gonna detrain in these other qualities that we need to succeed as a high jumper. There are tons of other periodization methods you can use to jump higher as well. You can do a conjugate approach, a concurrent approach if you're in season, but something I like to do is some form of linear and conjugate periodization. This allows me to prioritize a singular quality while still maintaining the other qualities that we need to jump high. For example, just because we're in a strength dominant cycle doesn't mean we're neglecting hypertrophy or power or elasticity. So to see continuous growth, it's better to continuously train in different and more intense macro cycles. As you get better as an athlete, you could start off with this 4-month program, go on to a different 4-month program that's a lot more intense and different so that you can keep adapting for years to come. That's where most coaches, most athletes fail. They don't know how to progress from the basic program. Lucky for you, I just opened 5 more spots in my coaching. So rather than seeing progress only after 4 months and then plateauing, I could continuously have you improve year to year with different and individualized training tailored to you every single month. You're never doing the same training cycle. Every single month is different because you also got to account for training variety. And I have you continuously doing different things because you're always improving. So your training will continuously keep improving with you so that you can keep adapting. I only take a limited amount of athletes at a time so that I can really focus on being available for every single athlete I have. So if you're serious about getting to that pro level, to the elite level, and you want high quality coaching and training, then fill out the form in my description and I'll reach out to you if you're a good fit. So with periodization, make sure you have a main goal in mind and sub goals in order to achieve that main goal. For example, I want to jump higher. So the sub goals would be to get stronger, build muscle, get more explosive. Have your structure make sense. Block periodization is good for off season, but if you're in season, it is going to be a little bit different. It's harder to commit more time and energy to jump training because you have to commit a decent amount of time and energy to your practices and your games. Block periodization doesn't work in season. If you're actively playing basketball and volleyball 3 to 4 times a week in your season, then your training needs to shift. Your priority in season is playing at a high level in your games, which means you cannot train with high volume and high intensity in season. If you do, your performance will drop and you'll probably get injured. The main goals with training in season is to maintain the qualities you built in your off season, stay healthy, and control your fatigue levels for your game day. That's probably what you don't want to hear. You want to jump higher for this current season you're in, but that's not how human physiology works. That's not how our body works. Remember that to elicit adaptation, we need to stress our bodies beyond its comfort level. And to do that, we got to induce fatigue in our body. However, being in a fatigue state will temporarily affect your performance negatively. In season, you don't have time to temporarily dip performance. If you're training wrong in season, you might be sacrificing all the gains you've built in your off season. So it's important to still train properly in season as well. How do we do this? By keeping our lifting days short, intensity high, and volume low. Prioritize movements and stimuli that you're not getting in your sport. For example, in volleyball, you're jumping a lot. It's a very quad dominant sport, but you're not getting a lot of heavy lifting or posterior chain work. So what you can do is a heavy back squat, 2 to 3 sets by 5 reps, and that could be done in one of your training days. You still want intensity to be relatively high. It's just that we don't want to fatigue our bodies with high volume as well. Be very intentional with it and keep it simple. Supplement your performance in games with your in-season training. I'll breeze through this next point because you hear this a lot, but your body weight matters. You need to get lean if you want to jump at your highest. For men, that could be 8 to 10% body fat. For women, that could be about 15% body fat. Jumping is fat phobic. The lighter you are, the less force you gotta produce to jump a given height. Extra body fat is like jumping with a weighted vest. You gotta improve your power to weight ratio. How do we do this? If you're overweight, if you're fat, you gotta eat in a caloric deficit. This doesn't mean starving yourself. It means dialing in with your nutrition and tracking it as well. Cutting to an extreme will have you at risk for losing muscle mass, and that's exactly what you don't want. So maybe eat about 300 to 500 calories less than your maintenance while meeting your macro goals. Prioritize a high protein, high carb, low fat diet. Stay hydrated, eat whole foods, avoid highly processed foods, fast foods, candy. You are what you eat. Eat healthy foods, you'll have a healthy body. Eat shitty foods, you'll have a shitty body. It's really that simple. It just takes a lot of discipline. And this is just as important as your training. Now let's talk about your training split. One of the best splits for athletes is a high-low training split. This is basically alternating between high intensity days and low intensity days. For example, you could have a high day on Monday where you're hitting really intense movements, heavy lifting, sprinting, plyos, etc. Followed by a low day on Tuesday where you're doing active recovery, mobility, tempo running, skills work, etc. You can even do an intense upper body day on your low day because it's not extremely fatiguing on your lower body. This split gives your nervous system enough time to recover in between hard training days, and it allows you to train consistently without burning out. Get rid of your push-pull leg split, that bro split. Next is rest and recovery. You can't train hard every day. You can't train hard every week. Your body grows when it's recovering and when it's resting, not while you're training. And please don't get caught up with all the gimmicky recovery modalities, massage guns, recovery boots, laser therapy, red light panels. Don't listen to gurus who say that you have to do these things to recover properly because they're likely trying to just sell you on something. I'm not saying you shouldn't do these things. By all means, if you enjoy these treatments and they make you feel better, go for it. They're there for a reason. I'm not totally against them. However, the main things you got to worry about is getting good sleep, having a good diet, and making sure to deload every 4 to 6 weeks. But none of these things matter if you don't have a real purpose behind your actions, behind your training. You need to be obsessed. You need to be passionate. And that obsession needs a purpose. Maybe your friends doubted you and are making fun of you. Maybe the coach has doubted you your whole life and you're trying to make your first volleyball team. Maybe you're trying to dunk in games, trying to stand out to the scouts. Whatever it is, it has to have a deeper meaning than just jumping is cool. That purpose is what keeps you consistent for years, not just a few weeks. What I've noticed over my time as a coach and trying to help people jump higher is that those people with superficial goals like trying to dunk in 6 months don't usually last with training. They underestimated how hard progress can be, how hard training can be. They don't see progress and they don't end up dunking in 6 months and then they give up. But when your why is strong, like trying to make the NBA, trying to go professional in volleyball, you'll keep showing up no matter what. No matter if you're making little progress, no matter if training is killing you, you're gonna be there. Lastly, I'm gonna be real with you. You're probably gonna need a coach at some point. Yes, you could absolutely make great progress with free content like this video. This video has a lot of gems. There's also more information information online today than ever before. But what a coach gives you is clarity. They cut out the noise, they save you time, eliminate guesswork, gets you progress faster, gives you expert advice and guidance, and holds you accountable. A good coach isn't someone who just writes programming. They should be able to make adjustments on the fly when necessary, tell you what not to do, and be straight up with you to put you on the right track. You don't have to spend money to get to the next level, but there's a reason why all these professional athletes have a coach. So if you do want to go pro, play in college, get a 45, 50-inch vertical, you're gonna likely need guidance. I'm not saying you specifically gotta get coaching from me, but you need something, whether it's another coach, a mentor, or years of trial, error, and self-education. If you want to take the long road, you're gonna do it all yourself and learn the hard way. You're gonna go through years of trial, error, and research. It's gonna take you that long to figure out what works for your body and what doesn't work for your body. There's decades of research in sports performance and jumping higher. It's gonna take a long time to study all these things. If you want the fastest route, get a coach who's gone through all those things already. Someone who could hand you the blueprint, save you years of wasted effort, and help you avoid mistakes that most athletes never recover from. Both paths work. I'm not saying to choose coaching or to choose to do it yourself. It just all depends on how much you value time. You're gonna save years of time by getting a coach, and you're gonna save a lot of money at the expense of time by doing it all yourself. The key is consistency either way. But if you can be consistent and guided, you're definitely gonna get there faster. And there you go. Everything you need to know about how to jump higher. Damn, this is probably my most informative video ever. So I hope this does well. If this helped you out at all, please give me a like, please subscribe so that I can keep making these videos. After watching this, there are no excuses. There's so much information in this video that you should be able to make a decent training routine and make progress. If you follow this advice, there's no reason you shouldn't be jumping higher in the next few months. Stay consistent, stay obsessed, and stay bouncy. I'll catch y'all later.